Hi, welcome back to the Truth Doctor Show. My name is Dr. Courtney Tracy. I'm known as the Truth Doctor, and on the show, I talk about the world through a mental health lens using pop culture and the media as my medium. Today, I'm reacting to the complexities that can be found throughout the grieving process when you lose somebody that you loved or that you knew. The example that I'm using for today is the season finale of Stranger Things, episode 9, season 4, chapter 9, The Piggyback. We're going to be looking at the relationship between Max and her brother Billy and the hold that Vecna has on Max and why. In the seasons prior, we can see that Billy significantly abused Max throughout their childhood. So much so that Max wished that Billy would die before the mind flare even got a hold on him. Billy's relationship with Max was very complicated. He was also rather racist towards Lucas. He was abusive and cruel, and yet we can still see that Max writes him a letter early on in the season about her grief. I think that most of us in the audience kind of sat with that grief and kind of wondered what it would be like, but we weren't quite sure what their relationship was really like or how she was really feeling. And we can see in the final episode that we find out why. Let's get into it.
About how I wanted my brother to die. I thought that you were just trying to upset me. To anger me. But you weren't, were you? You were just telling the truth.
There can definitely be times when people can say things like this to us. You already wanted them to die. You didn't even want them to be alive. You never cared about them anyways. You never talked to them. You never hung out with them. Those things can be really hard to hear. Sometimes people are trying to show you your truth, and it's not always easy to admit the truth. It's quite easy to unconsciously ignore the truth, especially when we feel like the way we're really feeling isn't a way that we should.
Billy, he made my life living hell. Every chance he got.
Max is trying to talk to Vecna and connect with him and understand why it is that he is attacking her and wanting to take her life. What is it that made her feel so vulnerable? And you can see that Lucas is kind of paying attention and trying to listen in to see what is it that she's about to say. Is this going to be helpful? And she's also talking about somebody who didn't really make his life a living heaven either.
So sometimes when I would lie in bed at night, I would pray. I would pray that something would happen to him. Something awful.
If you have ever felt this way, we have to talk about why we feel this way when we just want somebody who's in our life that hurts us so badly to disappear. Often we place what people do, their behaviors, how they make us feel, and what they think as the permanent ideation of who they are as a person. And I don't know if it's necessarily fair to do something like that, but we do it because we want to protect ourselves, and we do it because we don't deserve to experience harm. However, most people don't really want somebody to die, especially in the way that Billy did. But we want our own pain to stop. We want our own pain to stop. And often we think that the only way that that can happen is if that person is completely removed from our lives, or if something were to happen to them, because we can't see any way for us to get out of this situation or for them to change.
I knew that he drove too fast, so I would imagine him crashing. Dying in that stupid car.
So it makes sense that when she's contemplating this relationship that she had with her brother that led her to these feelings, she's thinking about things that have affected her nervous system.
I wanted him out of my life. Forever. I wanted him to disappear. The day that he died, I think that's why I just stood there, watched. I didn't know if he deserved to be saved. And I've tried to forgive myself.
A lot of what my show is about trying to teach my viewers how to see the humanity in every character and every person. And at the same time, I'm not here to shame someone for, and of course, this is a character, but I'm not trying to shame someone into wondering whether or not somebody should be saved. Grief is complex, and not just complex grief disorder, which was newly introduced to the DSM this year. Grief in itself is complex. There are so many different aspects of grief that we have to acknowledge, and grief can occur whether or not we know if that person should have been saved, whether or not we wished at some point that they would die. We still have to grapple with the understanding of what we felt and what we thought and what our relationship was with that person, regardless of whether or not it's comfortable. I wonder if now she feels like maybe she's a bad person because she had these thoughts, but thoughts do not equal action. Okay. And that's something that's really important to remember. Your brain wants to protect you. So you're going to go to thoughts of, oh, I just wish this person would die. I just want this person out of my life. Oh, I don't know if they should be saved. I don't know if they were saved. I wish they weren't. Now my life is still a living hell. You're allowed to have thoughts and you're allowed to have feelings. And it doesn't mean that you caused what happened. Now she's trying to justify that she wasn't weak or scared when what was happening to Billy was happening to Billy. But also, I don't know if somebody who even had a normal relationship with their sibling would be able to go and try to stop what was happening from happening. Maybe people would be scared. Maybe people would feel weak or would be weak in a sense of not having the strength to overcome something like Vecna. However, the complex grief that she's experiencing might overweigh that. She might be overlooking all those other aspects. And I wonder if she's feeling guilty in any degree. Let's continue.
I've tried, but I can't. I can't.
It can be really hard to forgive yourself for having those types of thoughts, especially after something happens to that person. I have had clients who have said, I will be happier when my parents die because of how much pain they caused me. And then something happened to their parent. And to process that took a while. It took quite a while, but it was doable. Your brain and your mind causing thoughts and feelings that feel protective to you when you're being abused doesn't mean that you're the cause of your abuser's death. Just because you want your abuser to be out of your life because they're harming you doesn't mean that if their life is taken, it's your fault.
So that's why I'm here. Because I just want you to take me away. And I want you to make me disappear.
Grief, when we feel attached to the person, whether or not it was a positive or a negative attachment, and grief, if we feel intentionally or unintentionally responsible for the loss of life, can be very difficult to manage. We can sometimes turn that on ourselves. It's survivor's guilt, and that comes up in many different situations, but partly it can be because we feel like we didn't do enough or we did something wrong to cause this situation. So the roles should have been reversed, because perhaps if we didn't do what we did, then what happened may not have happened. And because we'll never know, and in a way we are the center of our own universe, our brain only knows that our brain exists and only wants our brain to survive, we can start to turn on ourselves, much like we wanted to or did turn on that other person. And by turning on that other person, I mean that our brain rejected them because they were causing us so much pain and there was so much negativity attached to it. And now our brain, in a way, is doing the same thing to us.
Is that all true? You wanted Billy to die.
Why are you talking?
You ever have thoughts like that about me?
No, Lucas, never.
See, now this is where it gets really difficult. And also, this is really part of why therapy is really important. If somebody were to say that to somebody, like what just happened, okay, Max saying that to Lucas, and that was the reaction, Lucas's reaction was the person's reaction that you were talking to and trying to explain this complex idea of grief that's living within your mind because you hated your brother and you wanted him to die. And now he died from this monster that's coming from this other dimension. Yeah, that'd be pretty overwhelming to feel immediately isolated again. Not only was Max just saying basically basically that she wished that she would die. She's having thoughts of suicidality, but suicidality in a form of somebody please come and take my life because I want or I deserve to die. But now the one person that's closest to her is starting to back away and become fearful because she told the truth about how she felt about Billy and the whole situation. So in therapy, Max could come and talk to a therapist and she could be open about what it was that she was experiencing, and she wouldn't have this judgment that she received right away. And the therapist isn't going to go, oh my God, and kind of have this visceral personal reaction to what it is that Max just said.
Normal people don't fantasize about killing other people, Max. You realize that, right?
Lucas, please.
Normal people don't fantasize about killing other people, Max. Actually, it is a normal thought, and it is actually normal to fantasize. People who are being abused, whether it's domestic violence, it's sibling violence, it's partner violence, regardless of the type of violence or abuse that it is, you can have thoughts of wanting your attacker to die, to disappear, to have something bad happen to them because you have had so many bad things happen to you. It doesn't mean that you hold the rage that these people may feel, but you hold the anger. There's a difference.
Can you hear me?
He has her.
Max, where are you going? Don't be scared.
Stay away from me.
Now, obviously, you know that was just Vecna that had control over Lucas. However, it is absolutely possible for those types of things to happen. Our mind can be taken by trauma and taken by fear. And I think that Vecna represents a lot of that trauma, mental health disorders, dissociation, really just he connects to the vulnerable parts of other people. Grief is complex. This show, I think, did a really good job acknowledging something like that. There are children all over the world that have these thoughts about their siblings or their parents or the bullies that are at their school. And we need to normalize that the brain and the mind may have some thoughts of wanting our own environment to be different by these other people disappearing. Now, there's a large talk currently in our country and around the world of child abuse, of loss of life, of mass shootings, especially in schools with children. That's why I mentioned that our thoughts do not equal our behavior. When we've been abused, when we've been traumatized, our mind is going to do things. Our brain is going to do things. We do not have a lot of control over our brain. Almost 90% of everything that we do, think, and feel is completely unconscious. It just happens. Consciousness is paying attention to what happens to us naturally. It doesn't have full control over what happens to us naturally. It's what we do with these thoughts and feelings that we have. Do we talk about them? Do we have a support system that isn't going to have their own trauma and their own pain that's going to see us and reflect back to us what's within us, but judge us for it and not judge themselves for it? Are we going to feel isolated? Are we going to feel guilty? And are we going to be able to figure out how it is that we really feel when somebody that we wish would go away actually goes away and it does it in a very traumatizing way that they didn't even deserve? What other scenes do you want me to react to? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, I am glad that you exist.